Hello everyone, hope you are all doing fantastically. I just thought I'd jump on. It's been a pretty busy day today here at the Aquarium project, but I've always got time for you lovely people. If you haven't already, please make sure to smash the like button, subscribe, hit the bell icon, all that good stuff. Really helps us out. And let me know down below if you've got anything that you in particular you'd like to see me talk about. I'm more than happy to keep going with what I'm doing, just kind of like whatever comes to my head. But if there's anything in particular you feel like you're missing, please feel free to drop that down below and I'll check it out and see what we can do. But other than that, that's pretty much all I had. So let's get into the main topic for today's video, eh? So today we're going to be talking about to do with where our fish come from, and that's wild caught fish. What are the ethics around it? What do we need to consider as hobbyists? And is there anything different about them compared to, captive bred or captive raised fish? And what's the difference? So just quickly as well, what I'm going to do is just the usual. I'm just going to walk around and show you guys the fish while I talk over it for interest's sake. And then I'll show you anything that I need to for the video as we go. So wild caught fish, as the name is obviously going to suggest, is fish that are caught from the wild for use in the aquarium trade. So that's like ornamental purposes. We're not obviously talking about like food fish or anything like here, what people need to eat. This is just fish that we're talking about get caught from the wild and then go into through various channels into fish shops to be kept in aquariums and enjoyed for ornamental purposes, not for nutritional value or anything like that. And what kind of fish are we talking about when we talk about these ornamental fish that are going into the fish sort of hobby? The most important thing that I think, particularly for those in New Zealand to remember, is that far more of our fish are wild caught than I think people realize. Particularly, like, we get a lot of our information from like YouTubers and that from the United States or Europe or Southeast Asia and that. And we are a little bit different, being smaller market than that. So a lot of our fish are actually wild caught when most people wouldn't know that. So things like loaches, a lot of rasboras, plenty of different types of, what are some other, heaps of catfish, so like otocinclus to L number plecos and all that kind of thing. A lot of those will be wild caught. There really is heaps. I'm not the biggest expert in what is wild caught and what's not, to be honest, but there is a lot. If you guys want to know more, I believe one of our Three Idiots Talk Aquariums episodes, we talk about where fish come from. And Cam Scott, who's from the Fish Room, who's one of the other sort of members of the podcast, I guess we'd call it, is he spent a lot of time looking into what's wild caught and what's not, most commonly in New Zealand. So he would be the one to speak to, or you can look through the podcast episode and see where we're discussing it. But the fact of the matter is a lot more. Like, I think we get the idea in the hobby in New Zealand that it's just like, maybe clown loaches and pea puffers, and that's about it. And while they are, there is so much more that is originally wild caught that gets sold into the aquarium hobby in New Zealand that we just don't really know. And as a retailer, it's very hard for me to find out this information. I had a L128 Blue Phantom pleco a wee while back that was wild caught, and I was trying to get information about like I had a customer who wanted to know the CITES information for it, and there was a few other things they wanted to know about it. And I asked the people I bought it off, I asked my rep, I asked the head office, all that, and I just got completely ignored. So it is very hard even for me to find out information. So it makes sense, like it would follow through that a lot of people in the hobby, just, day-to-day kind of casual, more average hobbyists, aren't even going to have any idea. And it really sucks, because I think it's something that, it's information that we should definitely have in the fish hobby in New Zealand. When it comes to wild caught fish, I don't actually think there really is anything all that different compared to, farm raised, farm bred or hobbyist bred, in terms of like how to look after them and what you need to do and all that sort of thing. I really don't think there is much difference, to be honest. the fact that most people don't know even if they have wild caught would indicate to me that, it doesn't really matter that much, because if you don't know and your fish are still okay, then that's the main thing. But I think there is plenty of things that we, not maybe on the individual level, but as a collective, should be considering when it comes to wild caught fish. Not just for New Zealand, but like as a whole. But I will be talking about specifically the New Zealand context here. In my opinion, the most important thing that we need to consider in the industry as a whole, when we're talking about or thinking about the... I wish this a pistol would focus. Oh, there we go. Well, that's cool. Wow. But sorry, yeah, the most important thing I think for us to consider when we're talking about these wild caught fish is the sustainability practices of the wild fisheries, where these are coming from, because the whole point is not all wild caught fish are the same. Like, for example, I'm sure plenty of you guys are familiar with Project Piaba, I believe it's called, in the Amazon, with collecting the cardinal tetras that they would all die. They are basically an annual fish in the wild, and they'd all die. But, they catch them all and then sell them to aquariums, so the local people get money. The fish were going to die anyway. It's a win-win. And so stuff like that I think that's a fantastic, idea and a fantastic system, and there's no real downsides. But then we look at things like white clouds and denison barbs and that, where pretty much solely the aquarium trade is responsible for these fish getting, if not put over harvested to extinction, getting very close to it, and it is really sad, because I think we all love these fish, so we all obviously would love to see the best for them, and I think everyone could agree that wiping them out in the wild is a terrible idea. And I mean, I use those two examples just as examples, but I mean, there's so many different examples of fish that have been sort of over harvested, overfished, over collected, and now they're extinct or on the verge of extinction or very, very endangered and that kind of thing. And I just think that is not a good practice from like all around. Obviously, in terms of the environment, it's terrible. In terms of the actual fish, it's terrible. In terms of business practices, just completely overfishing yourself until there's none left is a terrible idea. It's basically horrible, and I don't think anyone should be getting behind that, because we love these fish. And so basically what happens is that kind of leaves us in the industry in this point where we don't know where a lot of our fish come from. We don't know much about how they're collected and that, but we also don't know even what is wild caught. So I think for me personally thinking here, the solution to this sort of problem is, well, not the solution, but the best thing that we can do is, I think it needs to be much more clear at every level, at the wholesale level, at the retail level, for actual specific individual hobbyists level, I guess. Like, every level, it needs to be much more clear, and even not necessarily clear, just easier to find this information if you're trying to find it. Like, if I'm trying to find out, what collection point these X fish is from, then that should be at least possible, and that's the first step, I think, because having this if we don't have this information, no one can have any opinions, because we just don't have the information that we need. So getting that information, I think, is the most important first step for trying to combat this issue. It really is. I think it really is an issue, because we in New Zealand like to think of ourselves as like clean and green and sustainable and all that. And I mean, for many, many reasons, we know we're not. We have plenty of issues with, runoff, for example, and like air pollution and all this kind of thing, same as anyone. But I think it's something that we can easily start working on. We don't need to solve this issue straight away, but I think starting to make progress is going to go so far and make such a big difference. And if people have the information that they need to be able to make an informed decision, I think that is the most important first step that we can possibly hope for. Having that first step gives us kind of a springboard to take those next steps and dive a little bit deeper And like, if I know, oh, all these fish are wild caught, but actually they're really endangered in the wild, and you know that's bad, then maybe it's like, oh, okay, I won't actually choose that fish. I'm going to choose something that looks very similar, like, you know, same color maybe, but I know this fish was bred, you know, in New Zealand, or even it was bred in Asia or something like that, but it was bred sustainably. It's not endangering wild populations, and I can enjoy it without having to contribute to the fact that X fish is endangered in the wild, or X fish is being smuggled out, or whatever. It is just oh yeah, I like it, and I know I now know that this fish is sort of came into my hands the right way, and I'm using right in quotation marks. Well, imagine me doing quotation marks, because there is no right and wrong with this kind of thing. It is a really hard, really subjective, and really up in the air kind of question. But I think it is really important and right in terms of by the fish and in terms of the environment is, I think someone that loves fish can get behind. Because as I said, we all want the best for our fish, we all love our fish, and that, I would think, extends to the wild populations of the world. That will be all that I had for you guys today. I think it is an important topic that I think we don't think about enough, especially here in New Zealand. I obviously can't speak about overseas wherever you're watching, but in New Zealand this is definitely something we don't think about enough, and I think it's something that's worth at least bringing to the fore of our minds. We don't have to come up with any solutions now or anything, but I think starting off just thinking about it and looking at these questions is the best thing that we can do. So make sure to drop your thoughts down below. I'd really love to hear it. I think this is something like, particularly like how much different stuff is actually wild caught that a lot of people don't know about, I think is something that's going to be a bit eye-opening for people. But yeah, I'd really love to hear your guys' thoughts. Make sure to let me know. Make sure to like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!